Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to this very uplifting series I've decided to start, wherein we're going to take a look at each of the Straw Hats and if they each were to die a horribly gruesome death at some point before the end of the One Piece story. Today's video is going to be about if Nami were to die. And I have a feeling this one's going to be a little bit more emotional than the Zoro one. Not to say that Zoro dying is not emotional, but as I said in that video, it's something that you sort of expect a little bit because Zoro's death has at least been foreshadowed a couple of times. Most notably the time where Kuma literally told Zoro, like, hey, if you take this pain bubble, you will die, and Zoro went ahead with it. So even then, and then of course there's the scene just in the last couple of episodes where Zoro literally meets the Grim Reaper. So, yeah, with Zoro, it's, like, expected a little bit. But with Nami, and a lot of the other Straw Hats for that matter, their deaths would kind of come more out of left field. And if Oda were to go that direction with it, I feel like they would hit a lot worse than if, like, Zoro were to die, or Sanji were to die, or Jinbei were to die. It's sort of like, and I brought this up when I talked about Zoro sacrificing himself, all of the Straw Hats, I feel, if they had to, would sacrifice themselves for Luffy's dream, okay? If push really came to shove. But there's some of the Straw Hats you can actually see that happening in the story from what was set up with their characters, right? And the ones that I think make the most sense are the frontline fighters. So we're talking Zoro, Sanji, Jinbei for that reason. Some arguments I've seen for Usopp make a little bit of sense, but we'll cover that when we get to his video. But now we're talking about Nami, though. And one thing I want to make very clear is that I'm not going to do this in the sense of every single video is one of the Straw Hats sacrifices themselves for Luffy's dream. You know, like in order to reach Laugh Tale or in order to obtain the One Piece, there has to be a death. Like this is like the Soul Stone from Endgame. I did that in, or is it Infinity War? I guess Infinity War and Endgame. But I did that with Zoro because it's been set up beforehand. Like he literally almost did, like he was willing to sacrifice himself for Luffy. Okay, so that's why I did it with Zoro. But I don't want that to be like the case every single time or every single video we discuss that. Like this Straw Hat sacrifice himself for Luffy, okay? The death does not need to be sacrificial. The death could just literally be a death. Like, a good example of this, and one example we might just roll with here because it did just recently happen, well, during Wano it happened, was the scene when Nami was facing off against Ulti. Or rather, it was Usopp and Nami fighting against Ulti and her brother, Page One. And in the first stage of that fight, when they were in the bathhouse, it was very clearly, it was apparent that Ulti and Page One had the upper hand. Usopp and Nami had some skills to kind of like, you know, get the edge in the battle a little bit, but at the end of the day, it just became very painfully clear Ulti was stronger than Nami, and Usopp was no match for Page One, and so it was looking like they both were not going to make it. And there was a moment during that fight when Ulti had Nami dead to rights, and she was pretty banged up, and she was bleeding and bruised, and Ulti kind of looked at her and says, you know, I'm tired of your captain always going around saying he's going to be king of the pirates. You know, we all know our captain of the Beast Pirates, Kaido, he's the one that's closest to being king of the pirates. He's the one that's going to kill your captain. So Ulti kind of gave Nami an ultimatum. And she was like, all right, listen, if you can admit that your captain, Luffy, is not going to be king of the pirates, if his dream is just going to be extinguished right here, then I'll let you live. But if you continue on spouting that nonsense, just like your captain is up there, I'm going to end your life right here. I'm just going to headbutt you full force, and I'm just going to crack your skull, and you're going to be dead. And so Nami, this was a very powerful scene, all right? Nami is at a moment where she literally thinks she's going to die, okay? Like, you see it in her face. She is crying. She is bawling, okay? And she looks right at Ulti, and Usopp's off to the side, and Usopp's also kind of fading in and out of consciousness. He just had, you know, his bones broken and stuff, and he's on the ground, and he's like, just, Nami, just say it. It's okay to lie every once in a while to save your own skin. You know, all you got to do is just say Luffy's not going to be king of the pirates, and then Ulti will probably just throw you to the ground, and then you'll be able to squirm away, and then who knows, maybe we could heal up, we could find Chopper or somebody, we can heal, and then we can maybe come back for a counterattack or something, but just don't throw your life away right now. There's a way out. You know, Ulti's literally giving you a way out. And Nami continues to cry and bawl. You know, she's teary-eyed, snot dripping down her nose. But she looks at Ulti straight in her eyes, and she still says, Luffy's gonna be king of the pirates. Because Nami, first of all, that is genuinely what Nami believes. All right. That's not something that she just says as like a motivational poster, like hang in there or something like that. No, Nami genuinely believes in Luffy 100% that he will be king of the pirates. Okay. Nami is indebted to Luffy for what he did at Cocoyashi, for defeating Arlong, for even after Nami, you know, expressly told them, you know, stay away from me. I'm done with you guys. I just used you. Luffy still believed in her. And Luffy still understood the pain that she was bearing all herself after Nojiko explained everything. And so, you know, I'm sure that scene was running through Nami's head in that moment when she was facing down Ulti's headbutt, and it was just like, this is it, game over. She was like, you know what? I was at the end of my ropes at Arlong Park, and Luffy believed in me. And even when I thought all was lost, he still carried that torch, and he was able to defeat Arlong even when I thought it was hopeless, and he saved my whole town. All right? I am not going to abandon him here. And it is a thing. It is honestly a question, like Usopp brought up. Like, all you got to do is just say he's not going to be king of the pirates, and you'll make it out of this. All right? But Nami just literally cannot bring herself to say that. All right? It would be like if she did admit that, if she did lie to just cover herself, like her own skin or whatever, she would probably feel like that's not right. I would feel like I'm losing part of myself there, okay? And then she says it, and he's like, Luffy will be king of the pirates. She doesn't say it super seriously. She doesn't say it like, she doesn't like have a JoJo face all of a sudden, like, Luffy will be king of the pirates. You know, nothing like that. She's crying. She's scared. And then, you know, right before Ulti attacks, then I believe that's when Otama showed up, or in the Koma Inu. Something happened there and distracted, you know, them, so Nami did not die. But it was very close. So let's just roll with that. Let's just say that happened. Let's say nobody showed up to distract Ulti or anything. Let's say Nami tells Ulti to her face, Luffy's going to be king of the pirates, and she's just like, oh, you. And then just turns into Pachycephalosaurus mode, and then just boom. And then that's it. That's it. Just Nami's dead. Just that's it. Nami is dead. Now, what that means for the rest of the attack on Onigashima, well, Nami and Usopp arguably did the least amount of stuff out of all of the Straw Hats there. You know, Nami did eventually take out Ulti with a lightning bolt, but that was after Big Mom blasted a cannon, like a laser cannon, straight through Ulti's chest. So you could argue that did most of the work there. And then Page 1 was taken out by Big Mom herself. So Ulti was technically defeated by Nami, but with a lot of help from Big Mom. And Usopp didn't actually have any takedown of any of the members of the Tobiropo during that battle, during that war. So honestly, you could say that most of the rest of Onigashima kind of goes the same way. Yeah, Nami was there to help Otama out and give her some confidence when she was delivering the speech to the Smile users and stuff. But if anything, honestly, the death of Nami at that moment, I feel would, like, really light a fire under all of the Straw Hats. Like especially Sanji, and we'll get to Sanji in a moment, like his, like, full view on this. But I feel like just in the heat of the moment, as soon as the Straw Hats were to find out that one of their own died, and it was Nami that straight up died, I mean, they would feel a brief flash of, like, you know, sorrow and just grief. But I think in the middle of this battle, they would channel all of that into just rage and just, like, revenge. We need to just decimate this place, okay? And honestly, that, like, if that news reached Luffy at that time, which I believe at the time Nami and Usopp were fighting Page 1 and Ulti, that was still, I don't even know if it was at the moment when Luffy had reached the roof yet, or if the Scabbards were still fighting Kaido. But regardless of the exact timing here, as soon as Luffy's group reaches the roof, you know, you got Luffy, Zoro, Kid, Law, and Killer all about to fight Kaido. Like, not so much for Kid and Law and everybody, but, like, Luffy especially is going to be way more pumped up and wrathful. Oh my god, I was just thinking how would that have affected Gear 5th? Because when Luffy goes into Gear 5th, he's like super happy-go-lucky and energetic and fun-loving and everything. He's like, oh my god, this is great. I'm the most free I've ever been. How would that have affected Gear 5th if like Nami were to die and Luffy was aware of this? Dude, it makes me think of like an alternate dimension where Luffy gets some kind of crazy rage power-up. Like, you know, and like he just defeats Kaido that way, but I probably wouldn't like that. I wouldn't really go with that. Like Luffy gets a rage power up because Nami died and then defeats Kaido with that, you know, because Gear 5th kind of needs to happen in order for Luffy to defeat Kaido. But it might be a different kind of Gear 5th. I'm not really sure. Or it might be a weird thing where Luffy goes into Gear 5th and he's so happy and he's just like, Nami died, and yet for some reason I can't stop laughing. This is weird. You know, it might be something like that. I don't know, because Gear 5th is we still don't know a lot of stuff about that. But anyway, let's just assume, you know, Kaido and Big Mom still fall in the hole. They are defeated. The Straw Hats and the Samurai Alliance win. But now the post-Wano arc is completely different. It's way more somber now. Okay, the Straw Hats are not happy. The Straw Hats are not, like, jumping for joy here because Nami has died. Okay? If anything, okay, tell you what. Not sure how I feel about Luffy getting the Rage power-up, but, like, Sanji getting the Rage power-up. Like, Sanji might be able to skip over a lot of the crap that happened with him, and his, like, moment where he was just like, I'm not sure if I'm really Sanji or if I'm a member of the Germa or my personality. Like, all of that might go by the wayside, and he might just, like, go into Ifrit Jambe and just defeat Queen way earlier just to take out his rage there. I mean, that would literally be Sanji, if anything. But you know how at the end of Wano, we had a moment where we kind of skipped over a lot of, like, death, you know, like Ashura Doji died and Izo died, and they didn't even really talk about it all too much. We just had a scene at the tomb or the shrine in Ringo where they just kind of mention, oh yeah, Ashura and Izo are dead, you know, and that was just kind of it. I kind of have a feeling like we would get way more of that, like those funeral rites and everything. We would see not just Ashura and Izo, but Nami as well, like all the people that have died there, you know? And the question is, what would the Straw Hats do now that Nami is gone, right? So, like I said, this is very different than if Zoro dies. And I think it's mainly because Zoro, you know, his position as first mate kind of like lent it to be like, all right, if there's anybody on the crew that has to sacrifice himself or die in the line of duty, as it were, it would be Zoro first kind of thing. And Zoro is a frontline fighter. Not to say Nami is weak or she's not a fighter. She is. But when it comes to like frontline fighting, there's like the monster trio, or I guess the monster quartet now. You know, they're the ones that jump into the fray. You know, you don't have you don't have Nami going up against like Kaido on the roof or anything like that. It's Zoro and Luffy, okay? You could also see Jinbei or Sanji maybe, right? But, you know, typically speaking, Nami was always part of the weakling trio, as they were always called, with herself, Usopp, and Chopper. Not to say they're very weak, but compared to, like, Zoro and, you know, Sanji and everything, right? So, the idea of Zoro dying, maybe a little bit more, like, it's easier to take kind of thing. But with Nami dying, that is something that would, like, shock all of the Straw Hats to the point of, like, they would probably not even know what to do after this. Like, all of the Straw Hats, if they were to die, would probably have a similar vibe of, like, hey, you know, like, if Chopper was going to die or if Brook was going to die, they'd be like, if we die, just continue the journey on, continue sailing, that kind of stuff, right? So they would all kind of have that, but, like, would they even want to after this? You know what I mean? Like, after Nami dies, would they even want to continue sailing? Could they even continue sailing? Nami is the navigator. All right? Like, she's the one that's... And they're in deep in the new world. You know, this isn't like they could just like, we'll just, like, shotgun it to the next island. We should be fine. Like, no. I mean, this is really, really dangerous. This is losing your navigator at the last stage of the game where it's super, super treacherous, okay? So, like... And Wano is a very isolated country, too. So the idea that they would have, like, really good navigators in Wano is not really feasible here. I know I'm trying to talk about, like, okay, who are they going to replace Nami with? That's not even what I'm talking about here. Like, who's going to replace Nami so they can get to the next island? Like, no, it's literally like, let's say the Straw Hats, after the death of Nami, decide, like, okay, we're done. I like Sanji just that would break Sanji. That would break him. Like, and he would just like the Straw Hats would be. I can imagine a lot of infighting there, and I can see a lot of them like I can see this literally tearing the crew apart. You know, in a way that I couldn't see Zoro's death tearing the crew apart. I mean, it was feasible that this crew would break up if any of them died, but like Nami, I could really see this. Okay. When Oda speaks about the Straw Hats as a family, he always refers to, so Nami would have been the sister of the crew, and Robin would be the mother, Frankie would be the perverted grandmother. We all know this structure, right? The family structure, right? So they've lost their big sister. You know what I mean? And she was not just a guiding light in the way of being a navigator, like literally guiding them, but she kind of kept everybody on task. You know what I mean? She was the one, like, you listened to Nami. She was effectively the quartermaster of the crew. You know, because Luffy on his own is most of the time just hanging out on the deck of the Sunny, or he's eating. He's not really caring a lot. You know, Zoro's usually sleeping or drinking. Nami's the one that pulls the reins here. Nami's the one that keeps the crew kind of like together when they're out sailing. She's that glue. You know what I mean? She's like, there's a storm approaching, hoist the mizzen mast, we're going port side or whatever. You know, I'm not a ship guy, you know? But so it's like, okay, Nami's giving orders, everybody shut up and listen kind of thing. And now she's gone. Now, could there be other members of the crew that could fill that? Sure. Robin, I think, would do a good job at that. I feel like Jinbei would do a really good job of it. You know, but like, I feel like Sanji would just be wrecked to the point where he might not even be able to speak for several days. Like, he would just be completely destroyed by this. Luffy as well. Luffy would probably just be replaying the events of like Arlong Park and stuff over and over again, and he might not be able to move on. Zoro would just be quietly somber. I think Robin would be grieving quite a bit as well. Chopper, Robin, Usopp. I feel like Chopper, Robin, Usopp, Brook, they would all be weeping uncontrollably. Zoro would be very stoic but upset, like a quiet sort of like somberness. Jinbei kind of the same way. And then Sanji's just the broken man. He's just like completely shut down all mental faculties at that point and just like, Sanji, you need to eat. Huh? Huh? Oh. Not hungry. Like, that, I could picture Sanji doing that. And Luffy maybe kind of similar. So, it's not even about going to the next island. It's like, we need to go back to Cocoyashi. We need to tell, like, that's where she needs to be, you know, that's where she needs to be buried, at Cocoyashi. But how are we going to even get back there? You know, we're on the other side of the world. You know, we don't have a navigator anymore. Like, and they would all, I think, realize pretty quick just how much they relied on Nami. Like, not that, like, they took her for granted or anything like that, but, like, sailing is completely different without Nami. And not just in the sense of, like, wow, there's, you know, one less of us now. It is, like, literally way more complex without Nami around, all right? So, I don't think they would continue sailing. I honestly think at this point, they would decide to go back to Cocoyashi, and that would be their final journey. They were going to go back to Cocoyashi, tell Genzo and Nojiko and everybody at the village what happened. Oh, God. And then when they do finally get there, that's a whole other thing. Because remember the last conversation Genzo had with Luffy? Where they were at Belmir's grave, and Genzo kind of looked at him and was kind of really serious and like, hey, no matter what you do not make Nami cry. And Luffy's just like, oh, we're not going to make her cry. And Genzo's like, you better not, right? She's been through enough already. The idea of them returning and then to say Nami died, like, that would be, we'll get to that. So I think they're going to need to get back to Cocoyashi, but this is easier said than done, because they're going to have to either go back through Fishman Island or cross the red line somehow. Probably the easier method would be the easier method out of the two would be go back through Fishman Island, but like that is going to be pretty much impossible because Nami was integral in handling those undersea currents. So They would probably have to they would have to find a navigator that could help them. That's the only way they'd be able to do this. Um and who would they really have? They okay, so after the battle with Kaido, you got Law and Kid's crew. Now Kid's crew, they're probably gone. They're not going to help out the Straw Hats like that. Kid's crew knew nothing about Nami really. I doubt they would even give a shit, honestly. Now Law, on the other hand, though, Law, I feel, would care, all right, because they traveled with the Straw Hats for so long. I feel like Law would care that Nami is dead, and also I think Law would also be kind of moved by the fact of, like, you know, he's traveled with the Straw Hats for so long. He knows what they're all about and how energetic and happy and everything they are, and how, like, crazy they are. And now seeing them after the death of Nami would, like, I think that would really affect Law in a big way. Be like, whoa, okay, this is there anything I can do to help you in this moment of grief? Something like that I could see Law doing, right? And they would probably say, like, we need to get back to her hometown in the East Blue. We need to get back to Cocoyashi Village. But in order to get there, we're going to need a navigator. We don't have one. We need to go all the way back through Fishman Island and then back through the Calm Belt. Like it's not going to be easy to get back there. And so Law might help them. He would have to put his own dream and his own ambitions on the side for now, but it's also kind of like they just finished this massive alliance taking down Kaido. Like, they just succeeded in taking down not one, but two members of the Emperors. So Law might also feel a little bit of, like, okay, I'm indebted to them. Like, they helped us take out two Emperors. They lost, like, Law might look at his crew and be like, I have all my crew. Beppo survived this, Sachi, Penguin, Jean Bart, they all survived. I survived. The Straw Hats lost one of their crewmates. Maybe Law might feel like, okay, we'll help you. We'll help you get back to the East Blue. All right, and so now you maybe have the Heart Pirates helping them out, where they have a submarine, tie the Polar Tang to the Sunny or whatever, and you just have to follow us. We'll do all the navigating. We have a great navigator on board, and that's Beppo. And Beppo was able to, Beppo's the navigator. That's who he is, and he was able to get them all the way through Fishman Island into the New World, and he's navigating them around. Like, Beppo's pretty good at this. Natural animal instincts, I guess. So, with the Heart Pirates helping them out, I think they could get back through the New World, back through Fishman Island. This is still a huge undertaking, keep in mind. This would take months, and they could easily get attacked by other pirate crews while that's going down. A million things could happen. They're going to have to dock at islands for, like, resupplying and stuff, and there was a moment of grief and, like, just, I'm not sure what to do here, but I feel like eventually they would have to get over it just because they'd have to, just because the only way to get back to Cocoyashi, this would take forever. And so they would have to fight through it. So provided they don't get destroyed on the way back, let's say they do get back to Cocoyashi, like, they do it, all right, and they get there, and they dock, and then Nojiko and Genzo and all the people of the island come over and be like, that's the Straw Hats ship. That's the Straw Hats Jolly Roger. Now, the information in Wano is pretty limited, to get out into the bigger world. But then again, a lot of the news got out already that Luffy was the new emperor and everything, like his Gear 5th form. That got out, So the information that one of the Straw Hats died might have got out as well. So it's very possible that the people of Cocoyashi already knew. Like, they go, please tell us this isn't true. Nami's not really dead. And then you just have this really just heart-wrenching moment, kind of similar to the moment, like, when in not Film Red, but in the episodes leading up to Film Red, where Shanks docks at Fuchsia Village after Uta was gone, and the whole crew is somber as hell, and Shanks is just really, like, quiet, and then Luffy's like, where's Uta? And Shanks is just like, she had to stay behind, Luffy. So imagine that kind of thing where the Thousand Sunny docks at Cocoyashi and all of the villagers are around, like Nojiko and Genzo are in tears with, like, is this actually true? And Luffy walks off the Sunny and his hat is like this, and it's, like, shaded so you can't really see his eyes, and he just looks somber as all hell. And, like, at that moment, Nojiko and Genzo, like, know immediately. but just for obligation, they have to ask. They'd just be like Nojiko, I feel like wouldn't even be able to say anything. She'd be so distraught. She would like collapse and start crying. Genzo would be crying too, but he'd be like, you just got to tell us what happened. And I feel like at that moment, Luffy would take off his hat and then like do this and just be like, I am so sorry I failed you. And then Genzo would collapse as well. And then everybody else in the village that knew Nami would also just start just bawling their eyes out, right? And then we would have, like, I mean, it would be a very nice service where it would be on that ridge just where Bellamere was buried. And you'd have a moment where everybody's kind of lined up. I'm kind of picturing something similar to, honestly, like Whitebeard and Shanks here, right? Whitebeard, like Shanks helping out with Whitebeard's funeral and Ace's funeral and everything. And, oh God, you really want something to like tear at your heartstrings? Okay, how about this? So you have Bellamere's cross overlooking the ocean. And then you have another one right next to it, which is Nami's grave, which is also a cross. And it has like a little Mekon and everything there, and you know, everything's like there's some gold coins on there. Like, here, Nami, here's all the gold. You know, a pinwheel, of course, all that kind of stuff. And then Luffy just walks up to the grave and takes off his straw hat, and it's just, I'm sorry I couldn't help you this time. And then Luffy just sets his straw hat on the grave, just like he did with Nami at Arlong Park. And then Luffy just walks away, leaving his straw hat on her grave. Because he failed. And he feels like at this point, like, you know, we lost our navigator. We lost like one of the people that really keeps this crew a crew. That's been with us since like the very beginning almost. And that I think with Zoro dying it would be tough, but I think they would continue on. I think this would break Luffy. And he's not the only one in the crew, and also Nami's not the only person in the crew that I think would do this, but like I think because Arlong Park happened and how significant that was on Luffy's actions and Nami's past, that her death would really hit home so bad that the crew would probably not be able to stick together after this. All right? And I think at this point they would all break up and they would go their separate ways. Like, I don't think that'll happen for every single one of the Straw Hats, but with this one I'm saying it is a breakup condition. I'm going through the rest of the Straw Hats right now in my head just to see if there's any others. Now, the moment with Robin was also very significant because they had something similar at Enies Lobby. So maybe with Robin. But, like, it's just the idea that Nami was there since, like, the very beginning. Like, when Zoro and Luffy set out to sea from Shellstown, they were in a little dinghy, and they had no idea what they were doing, and they had no concept of what it really means to have an actual functional pirate crew. Like, Luffy knew, like, in an ambiguous sense, in, like, you know, a metaphorical sense, what it means to be a pirate. You know, the kind of pirate he wanted to be. And Zoro fought pirates, so he knows. But when it comes to the actual practicality of having a ship and sailing it around and navigating and keeping everyone together as like a military unit, kind of in a sense, you know, it's like, hey, you go over there and do that or we're all gonna die. It's like, yes, ma'am, you know, that kind of stuff. Like, Nami's the one that really brought all this together. Like, okay, yeah, clearly neither of you know anything about what it is to be a pirate or how to be in a pirate crew, so I have to be the one to, like, tell you guys and organize everything out, right? Yeah. I don't know. Let me know how you feel about this down below. Let me know how you think the Straw Hats would handle this. But I think this would be a moment where I think this would break them up. You know what? Honestly, it might happen with Robin and maybe some other Straw Hats when we actually sit down and talk about the other Straw Hats. But I think this might be the worst one. Like, I think this might be the most devastating death to the point of the crew disbanding out of all of them. We'll have to just see as we cover the rest of the Straw Hats in turn. But that's my initial viewpoints on actually talking about this right now, right? Yeah, as for the Straw Hats themselves, I mean, Luffy would go back home to Fuchsia. Sanji would go back to the Baratier like a broken man. It's like, oh my god, you could even go darker with it with Sanji. You could even go like... I don't know if he would even do, you know, the idea that, like, so Sanji was worried that he became this emotionless being during Wano. What if the death of Nami would kind of let Sanji yield to that, in a sense, where Sanji would yield to the idea, like, I don't even want to feel anything anymore, man. I kind of wish I was like my brothers, and I don't even have to worry about these feelings anymore of, like, this remorse, this guilt, all these things weighing me down. If I could just discard that. Like, Sanji might have a really interesting arc after this. Like, really sad kind of arc after this. Not even like a heel turn kind of arc. Like Sanji becomes evil. It's more of just like Sanji just becomes dejected and discards his humanity. Sanji has a Dio arc without becoming a villain kind of thing. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. But it'd be rough. It'd be rough for all of them. Once again, here at the end, I feel like I should say, and many people in the comments have probably already said it, that, you know, Oda would never do this. Oda's never going to kill off Nami. And yeah, you're right. He's never going to do that. I mean, I guess we can't be 100% sure that he wouldn't ever do that. From if this video is any example of it, going through all these options and what ifs and hypotheticals, it would definitely hit home. But I don't think he would do that because that would, I think, be a really big downer to end his manga. So it's obviously never going to happen. But to think about it, which is the whole point of this series, like, okay, probably never going to happen. All the Straw Hats are going to make it through probably fine. But what if they didn't? That's the whole point of this. So hope you guys, I don't even know if I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys found the video watchable. How about that? All right. Anyway, next time we're going to be looking at Usopp and if he were to die. A lot of different aspects to cover with Usopp's character being a brave warrior of the sea and all. So we'll have a lot of stuff to talk about that next week. But yeah, thanks for watching, everyone. Teching, signing out. It's orange, bubbly. I didn't even plan that, actually.